Okay, so here we are. This is called In My Shoes, an uncommon dialogue. I'm just going to give you all a bit of a feedback before we just crack on. We'll look at why we're here in a second, but we're going to keep this absolutely unedited. And that will include whatever mistakes, whatever insights. This is just an honest, open conversation. Nathan and I, who he'll introduce himself in a minute, we spoke yesterday before this, and we set a handful of questions that we'd like to get through, but this is not a question and answer interview. These are guides. We'll cover all these, but we're literally going to go where this takes us. So I won't explain why we're here because that's in our questions. It will come out, but we're going to crack on now. So let's begin. Nath, who are you?
Hi, I'm Nathan Jones, a professional fighter, MMA fighter, and martial arts coach.
How old are you, man?
33, and I'm based in Richmond, born and bred from London.
And where would you put your social class?
I grew up working class with a middle class education, and now my lifestyle's middle class.
Okay. And you're a black man?
Yep.
Okay. I'm Matt Jardine. I am 48, white, middle class. Nath and I have lived in the same area. I'm from Hampton, but we're within 10 miles each other. We separated by 10 years, but we're pretty much the schooling's the same. Were you at Witten, weren't you?
Orleans.
Yeah. Orleans, sorry, yeah, with Jeremy. Yeah. And I was at Teddington, so they're much of a much. They played rugby against each other. My dad was a kitchen fitter. Mum was a housewife, and yeah. So we're separated by year. We're separated by skin color. Other than that, we're pretty much the same, except Nave's darce choke. I just can't do anything with it. So that.
I like that one.
There's nothing I can do about that. We are separated by a darce choke, which I just can't get out of. Right, Nath, why are you here?
I'm here just to talk about issues and explore understandings, more for my own sake, because one, I need to get clarity on how I feel about the situation, and I think you can really get that from talking about it, and two, just to get other insights through having conversations, so that's why I'm here.
Yeah, I'm here the same thing. Mine was sparked by I think it was on the Tuesday, the Black Lives Matter, we'll talk about it in a second day, and I posted in what I thought was in support, a full spectrum colour wheel with an all lives matter, having absolutely no idea what that hashtag meant. I'd never seen the links, the pro-racist links to it at all. I'm not really that social media savvy. Anyway, just not knowing. I posted it with a Buddhist point of view, that we are all one. That was my intention, and got absolutely roasted for it, and fair enough. And I came away upset. I was upset at the gaps in my knowledge, and I meditated on it and I thought, wow, I clearly have a blind spot. And then I started to see that, and I thought, what's the way around this? Conversation. So I contacted Nathan and said, what do you think of this, man? He said, that's a great idea. So the plan for this is for Nathan and me to have an open, honest conversation, so that those who aren't yet ready to do that, or don't feel safe enough to do that, can kind of maybe use our conversation. That's about right, Nathan, as a sort of an island of safety sort of stuff. So we'll take the hits for them wherever that goes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Except when I say hits, don't ask me. Let's not get involved in that. Right. Okay, so let's get straight on. So we're talking about, let's get crack straight in, right? Let's discuss this. Black Lives Matter versus, or not versus, two hashtags: Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. Discuss.
Mm-hmm. I see it as two separate things: Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. Because when you say Black Lives Matter, you're kind of like singling it out. but all lives do matter. But you wouldn't say, oh, Black Lives Matter, oh, all lives matter. Do you know what I mean? I think it kind of dilutes the message that Black Lives Matter give. I feel all lives do matter, you know, but at the moment, with the Black Lives Matter movement, we're honing in on a point and raising awareness for that, you know. That's where I'm at with it.
Yeah, that's a good point, and that's the mistake I made, because I had in my head. So let's finish that sentence, and this is as a writer, right? I realised the power and the danger of words. We just spoke before we started recording about you with your daughter and about being a father now, and that you can never tell someone about being a father until they're a father, and the same is true of a mother. Some experiences you can't have, and that's the same with writing, is that it is always a substitute for the real experience. And even more dangerous on social media. So, for example, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, 3 words each, right? And a hashtag, so the 3 words. So if we filled in the rest of that sentence, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, one way, a person could read that. Oh man, stop moaning about Black Lives Matter, white lives matter too. That's how the rest of that sentence would be. That's one version, right? The other version is all lives matter. Of course, Black lives we're all one. Do you know what I mean? But meaning can get lost in 3 words. And I absolutely have felt that. And I think that is one of the kind of risks of social media and sort of titles, don't you reckon?
Definitely. And I think that's why it's good that we're doing this, so we can explore it, you know, because even though it's their saying or the slogan, you know, it's easy to just get swept under the carpet or go over your head, you know. So it's good to see what their messages are, you know. And I think for Black Lives Matter, it's a message that needs to be heard, because it's carrying on throughout the, you know, centuries, decades, and stuff, and it's not getting resolved, you know. So I think it does need more awareness, you know, for the issue to get tackled.
Can I ask you something about prejudice because I say we're from the same environment, right? We're probably in one of the most cosmopolitan, just outside London, one of the most cosmopolitan mixed areas. We have everyone in our city, so we're kind of spoilt for that. But could I ask you about what prejudice, if any, you have faced in what does that look like? We spoke about this yesterday. I could probably say on one hand how many times I have had a conversation about racism. I mean, that's awful, but it hasn't come up in my life. So what does it look like? What does it look like growing up for you?
For me, I mean, I've been fortunate to not have experienced as much as others have, and especially, you know, compared to my mother's generation, my grandparents' generation as well. So for me, it's been growing up at school, where I've experienced, you know, bullying. Some of it was directed at the colour of my skin. Others was directed at where I lived. You know, what I was wearing, things like that. But no, I did experience bullying for my hair as well, being proud of my hair. You know what I mean? I had an afro here and there.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it is, when I was growing up, my mum, you know, made me aware growing up of the inequalities and the differences. And so I've been able to, you know, generate resilience around it. So I've had to develop tough skin with it, you know, but I've not experienced it to the extent of others that you hear in the wider community, you know. Growing up, I had a handful of other black neighbours, black friends, but fortunately through society now, do you know what I mean? It's a lot more multicultural, so ethnicity and is widely accepted, wider accepted now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't necessarily always have these conversations, because you know, I want to say it's taboo, but you wouldn't be racist to somebody. Do you know what I mean? Or you shouldn't be racist to somebody. You know what I mean? So you wouldn't
The thing
talk
is,
about
it
it.
sort of is taboo, isn't it? Actually, and I
Mm.
got about 18 months ago. I got this book. Right, I heard it on Nihal Arthanaika on radio. I listened to a thing. It's called White Fragility. Why it's so hard for white people to talk about racism. Right, and I actually originally got it because I'm researching a novel on racism in South Africa. Actually, right, and it says along the lines of that the sort of quiet, and this is from a white perspective, it's written by a white woman who does pretty much what we're doing actually right now, black and white conversation. She goes into companies, mostly white companies, and talks about black policy, etc., and why there are not more blacks, and right. And she says that a lot of whites, unbeknownst, we have this idea that white racist people are terrible, right? And because we're not that, we therefore don't consider ourselves racist. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not burning houses and, making Nazi slogans and all that sort of stuff. So therefore, I kind of sit comfortably as a non-racist, right? So you almost, what you said earlier, push it under the carpet. You go, of course I'm not racist. But she suggests that in that blank spot, that bit that you haven't seen, suggests because there are no conversations about racism regularly, just as you said, it's taboo, there's never a way of really growing up through it. She says the real way through ignorance is discussion. And we've seen that on social media, no one discussing, then someone says something with a little bit of information, and then the whole thing ripping apart. And I think the biggest problem is just we just don't have that conversation. We just don't sit down and have that conversation. And I go to you, Nath, what's life like as a black man? And you go to me, Matt, what's life like as a white man? It's just not done. And I think the circumstance across the world could be better for that. Don't you reckon?
No, definitely, 100%. And I think having events like this, with bringing the Black Lives Matter to the fore is only good in that, because it will generate that the conversation, which hopefully will benefit the understanding.
Let me ask you this then, right? So we looked at Prejudice. Speaking of tags,
Yep.
In writing, a tag is, I know you know, but just explain to those who might be watching. A writing tag is the man got out of the car and said, he said, that's a writing tag. When you say which character is talking, right? Oh, you look lovely in blue, she said. That's a writing tag. And actually, we tag people naturally all the time in life. So when I said I'm speaking to Nathan, Sherry'd say, which Nathan? I said, from Richmond. Tag. Right? Mm-hmm. If, for example, there were 18 different Nathans at Richmond who had DARS chokes, the next tag, because then you go, well, there's 18 Nathans, the black guy. Tags, right? That's what we do. So for me as a writer in a writing community, I'd probably be tagged as the bald guy. Or in a martial arts community, the guy who writes. So it's a comparative thing. And I wonder about this sometimes in, going back to you talking about people saying about your hair and social stuff. And I was losing my hair pretty early on. I was receding from kind of 16. So I had the hair stuff. And I'm interested how much of childhood cruelty is, it's all prejudice, but how much is racism and how much is just kids being dicks? That's not very subtle term.
For sure.
Do you know what I mean? What do you think on that?
Well, I think it's got to come from somewhere, and it's how we're socialised, So at home, learned behaviour, in peer groups, in schools and stuff. But I think a lot of it is growing up and reflecting, your parents' ideals and stuff, and you're just falling into the accepted norms, how to talk to people, what you think of other people, and in my experience, it was the kids just saying it and not really understanding the meaning and the gravity of what they're saying. Yeah. But then you had, on the other side of the coin, for me, those that did. And that's what cut deep, you know. And yeah, I mean, I think it'll be different for everybody. Their people's own experiences and people's own thoughts, you know. How about you?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I agree with you. Just that general view of one thing I detest with an absolute passion. It's my pet hate is bullying. I can't bear it. I cannot bear bullying. Right? I don't like people to be attacked at any fights at school, and I didn't get in many. I wasn't a big scrapper, but any fights I got in were on behalf of people being bullied. I just don't like to see it. I don't understand it. I don't like to see it. It's just not my thing. It makes me very sad. And I think as one of the things, there are many things, but one of the things that kind of shoved me towards Buddhism, actually, because of that whole unification, that once you strip behind everything, behind height, weight, color, size, views, you know, I genuinely believe we're kind of the one thing, and I access that through meditation. And that's not really a thing for this conversation. That's more a spiritual thing, but that's absolutely what I believe. And you're right. It does. I always used to wonder what in you makes you genuinely get off on making someone sad, whether you go, you're bald, or whatever it may be, right? I just don't understand what pleasure comes from that. And you're right, it has to have come from somewhere, you know, probably family-based stuff or whatever it may be. Because most of our beliefs we're inherited. Until you make an effort to change your belief with education or conversation, you actually are just rehashing your parents' beliefs, don't you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. And then, you know, we're all products of our society where we're growing up. You know, communities as well, I think is also a strong environment, you know.
Let's look at something that's kind of sparked this all off this time, but it's not the first time. So we called this, didn't we? Over there, over here. We're all looking from the UK. Well, I'm in Oman at the moment, but you know, from the UK over America are just, you know, just something absolutely horrific. So let's talk about how that has translated from there to here, because now that's opened up a whole new kind of can of worms of people going, it happened in America, why are we spray painting? You know, speak to me about that.
I think, well, first of all, on a humanitarian level, you know, all lives matter. It was inhumane what we saw. You know what I mean? No one should be treated like that, regardless of who they are. Justice needs to be served. Do you know what I mean? Whether you need, you know, need to be found guilty of something, you know what I mean, before you're, you know, before you're sentenced or whatever.
Yeah. And
that shouldn't happen from people in a position of power. Do you know what I mean? So from that sense, it shouldn't happen. Humanitarian. In another sense, I think here in Britain we can relate the inequalities that are being faced in America with police brutality to African Americans. We can relate to inequalities to the you know, the black population, inequalities such as through the justice system, or inequalities with black boys underachieving, things like that. Do you know what I mean? And they're two examples that I'm aware of that I've experienced growing up. And from that point of view, I can relate to this, and these inequalities need to be challenged, you know, because it's gone on for centuries, which I've studied at uni, you know.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, tell us about your actual education background in this, because that's interesting. I didn't know that till yesterday, actually.
Yeah, so graduated with a history and politics degree. In that, I focused on American history. So learned it from you know, when it started, going all the way through the Americans' Civil War, so 1861 to 1865. You know, when slavery was abolished, going through the civil rights movement. You know, 1964. 1965, the Civil Rights Act,
still in there.
The voting rights. I had to. It's like those dates are still there, but everything else is, you know what I mean?
God, yeah.
Since I graduated. But and in there with my dissertation, I was focusing on the civil rights movement. You know, with Malcolm X, comparing the contrasts that he had with Martin Luther King. You know what I mean? So I've got a lot of interest in Black history, in American history, in the segregation and the inequalities. You know, and it's happened decades and decades, and cases of it is institutionalized. It's ingrained in the system, and nothing's getting dealt with, done. You know, and it's just repeated behaviors. You know, that we're seeing. You know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Just going back to you talking about comparative. You say Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, etc., and that's interesting because here you are. So there are lots of different reactions. We're having a calm, open conversation, right? And we're not missing any of the elements. But equally, there will be people who absolutely would be going off on each other, white and black, right? And we see that calm communication, riots, anger, calling whoever, all sorts of stuff over social media. What makes the difference? Why does someone lose the plot and someone can sit calmly? And I'm talking about white and black. Why? What makes that? What do you think?
Well, it comes down to being listened, being heard, being affected. Do you know what I mean? We're far, you know, we're far removed from the situation. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like, if that was one of my family members, I'd have, you know, different reaction. Do you know what I mean?
That's a good point. Yeah.
So in that sense, we can be calm about it. Second, I know you in the sense that you're open and honest to be receptive to what I'm saying. Yeah. You're not imposing your views on me or telling me to act a certain way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a two-way conversation, you know. I don't know why some people feel the need to demonstrate that hate, but a lot of it starts from a reaction. It's a knee-jerk reaction, you know. For example, I've been watching some of the videos in the protests, and the 2 police officers pushed down that pensioner.
Oh, the old guy.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch. To be honest, I can't watch these things to the end because I know where it's going, and I don't like to see that last. It makes me feel a bit sick, actually. But I couldn't believe it in Buffalo or something, or somewhere, something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, like, that could have easily started off a bigger chain reaction. You know, seeing somebody just get pushed over by the police. Yes, they were doing their job, but the guy's injured, blood's coming out of his head, like.
And he was an old guy. He's like 70 something, wasn't he? I mean, literally no threat whatsoever. It's
But I think incidents like that, and incidents like George Floyd, kind of exacerbates the problem that these things happen in broad daylight and they're not getting resolved. You know, that people are getting away with it. People are abusing their position of power. There's no justice. There's inequality, and you know, and that seeps through and it trickles down into all different areas and atmospheres of society that we've got to live through. You know, and it's, you know, gets passed on, and we're learning, teaching. We're learning as we're living, and we're teaching as we're going on. Do you know what I mean? So it's gotta get solved, you know.
This isn't. Can I ask, this wasn't on our list, but I said we were going to go where this was going to go, and I'll tell you, something that drove me mad. I was watching in this a looting video, right, in the States, and this drove me really, really mad, and I wanted your view on this. A white woman from my demographic, middle class, looting on like, and I felt looking at that like it was a hanger-oner. Like, I'm going, this is not your fight. What do you get that? Is there a degree of support is one thing? You know what I mean by hanger-oners? Like,
Yeah.
I love to protest. This week I'm protesting for black people. Tomorrow I'm going to be protesting for gay people. Then short bald people with a sticky out left ear. It doesn't it doesn't feel genuine. What is your view on that?
I've got two views really. The first view is support is support, you know, and like for example, when I go back to like when I compare like Martin Luther King, he had white people. It was black and white people doing non-violent protests. You know, one of those arguments were, you know, more people are getting involved, spreading the word, and raising awareness. So in that sense, it's great. Yeah. But then another thing is when you do get these people that just jump on the bandwagon, in inverted commas, it does dilute the problem, or people overlook it because, you know, their
becomes a new problem.
Diverted. Yeah, no, exactly. So, and that's, you know, when you look at the other side of the coin of the civil rights movement, you know, they only had black people for that reason in their support, you know. So yes and no. Sometimes I think people just jump on the bandwagon, but in the wider picture, more people that can address and more people that support the problem, we can find a solution together. Do you know what I mean? It's not us versus you versus them. We're all in this together, whether
absolutely.
You're on this side of the fence or that side of the fence. You know?
That unity version, or literally all as one, isn't it?
Yeah. And again, that goes into that all lives matter.
Which again, you have to fill out the sentences, isn't it? 3 words, dangerous. That could be anything. Fill the rest of the sentence out, and then you'll work out whether that hashtag is coming from a racist or a non-racist. If you filled out the sentence, just as we discussed. Okay, all right. Let's look at this now. Then we called this "Why Now?" Right? Looking on, and why has this this has been going on forever, right? Horribly. Why has this kicked off now?
Yeah, that's a good question. but I think technology has allowed us to document this incident and share it instantly, and it's unedited, independent footage. It's not what the state has released. You know, it's bystanders catching this angle, that angle. You know, shared just like that. And I think using hashtags and the wider, you know, we're going through a pandemic right now. Do you know what I mean? But we can all still communicate together. To voice our opinions and to, you know, for just causes, you know.
I think so. I think you're right when you said that, because I hadn't thought about it. So social media is a massive one. You're absolutely right. Unedited, real-time footage with no other agenda initially. There it is, and you're just seeing it for real. And you're right, instantly. I think that's probably why. I mean, this straw that breaks the camel back should have broken long ago. But you're right. I think technology.
Oh, for sure. Because there have been, you know, you look through the cases, and even, you know, because I've been following the all Black Lives Matter, all the cases that, you know, what they're fighting for. It keeps happening time and time again. And I think this one, you know, that I've just seen, I've not even followed it. Seen it through their channels. It's just popped up, and it's popped up everywhere now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, it's unfortunate.
Let's get to a brilliant question you asked yesterday. This is a hard question, right? And I love this question. And when you made us put it down, I think it's great. And I'm just going to do as you said, right? Here we go. What did you see when you saw the tragedy of George Floyd? Okay, what did you see?
So initially, what I saw was a police officer using Jujitsu combat moves to, you know, to pin George Floyd down. Well, I don't know if it was George Floyd. You know what I mean? Just a man.
Yeah.
And without any context, I don't know. I was like, I had to find out more. I was like, what is this? You know, I thought it wasn't a great, and to find out he died, it's not a great advertisement using martial arts in your work, you know?
So yeah,
That's the first things that I saw.
yeah, that's
and
an
then,
interesting point, actually. Did you
yeah, and I was like,
see? Was your first impression that's a black man under there? Under the
that
under.
was
I mean,
that was my second impression.
right.
That was my second impression. I mean, just when you're looking on the timelines and stuff,
Yeah.
like
You just flee.
there's two things on my timeline, right? There's either girls or there's jiu-jitsu.
That's what's going on.
So I'm seeing this
Mine's only writing and jiu-jitsu. Old man jiu-jitsu at that, right?
So yeah, that's the first thing I saw. Jiu-jitsu, okay, and you know, then I'm seeing a white man and a black man, and then I'm thinking, oh, here we go again. And then I'm searching for context. Like, what did he do? What is this? He's unarmed. Why is he unarmed? Yeah. Why is there more than one officer restraining? Do you know what I mean? Then I'm asking all these questions, and I'm doing my research, and you know, it's unfortunate, but it's a bittersweet thing, positive outcome to come from a negative outcome to raise awareness, because like myself, like many other people, you know, we're doing our research now, we're gathering information, we're seeking understanding. Do you know what I mean? You know, and I just hope that the positive outcome can be, you know, resolved soon. Do you know what I mean? And justice served.
I saw, again, it's interesting what filters we bring, because mine, you know, I said I don't like bullying. I saw, the first thing I saw was three guys just basically pinning someone who couldn't move. I saw a whole bully thing. I was like, what are you doing? What? The guy's like on his front. You do have to have that much weight on him. And again, I hadn't watched it through to the end, because I tried. So I'm a believer of whatever comes in, kind of rubbish in, rubbish out. However, clearly that could also be I'm ignoring the truth. So I realized the blind spot there as well, right? But you know what I mean? Like I don't watch horror movies, for example. You know, Anne of Green Gables and that sort of stuff is about my level. So that's also a limit, because I didn't see that through to the end. I didn't watch it because I don't like the end. It makes me feel a bit sick, and you know, reminds me of when I got attacked. I didn't get attacked like that, but I'm just saying, I'm not a big fan of that sort of stuff. So I didn't watch it to the end, but I did see, oh, you're kidding me. What's the point? And then like you, as you see it coming up in your feed, you start to go, whoa, this is a real problem. But I initially saw, you know, American police flaunting their power, when really, do you need three people to lean on that guy? Just let him up and take him to prison, not knowing the outcome till later. Yeah, that was my first impression.
No, for sure. And yeah, watching that video, it was, I don't know. It was,
watch it to the end. I didn't watch it.
Yeah,
I didn't.
It was horrible, you know, because he's helpless, pleading for his life, saying he can't breathe, and you know, calling for his mum, and do you know what I mean? And I just think, what part of your human psyche, when you're gonna carry on kneeling on someone when you should know that it's a choke? Do you know what I mean? And the consequences of your actions and stuff.
Yeah. All right, let's look at this. So the whole purpose of this is we're trying to move forwards, because what we see a lot of are people commenting, and outrage and comment and support don't really mean anything until there's action, right? My personal belief, both of us are educators, okay? So action and education is always the way forward. So with that in mind, we're non-specialists, right? We've discussed this as two guys, and we'll make the separation, a black man and a white man, discussing as non-specialists. We haven't got a great background. I am sure there are a ton of people who can go into this, you know, psychologically and racially and all these different things much better than us. But as non-specialists, as normal general public, what can we do to move from now to move on in a tiny way and improve our world doesn't even have to be very big. I mean, what can we do? What can we do immediately to make a difference, Nave?
I think to question how we think, not to say everything we think is wrong, but just to realize why we think what we think. You know, making informed decisions. I mean, before I was a fighter, I was a youth worker. I'm a youth worker working, you know, with young people, and whenever they have some, you know, a question, I always challenge it, just to get them to explain why they think that way. And I think, especially when it comes to not so much ignorant people, but when it comes to ignorance,
That's
you know,
sorry to disturb you. That's really important, because that's right. If you accuse someone of being ignorant, they're going to get their back up and they're going, oh, no, I'm not. And then you get no communication. If it's ignorance, that's a great distinction, Nath, actually. That I'm writing that down. Ignorance and ignorant. That's a good point. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. No. That was a good point, actually. Yeah.
That's a great point.
But no, exactly. So I just think if people are ignorant, then you should if it's ignorance, sorry, that you should challenge it and educate people, but not tell people and force your views on people. But you know, when I'm talking to my youth, I try and teach them just to question it, so the choices they make are informed. You know what I mean? Gather information, and that's what I like to do. And even by me challenging, you know, I update my own knowledge. I'm not. I never go around preaching. You know, I'm always searching, updating my knowledge. So the more we can do that and talk, you know, I think the better, because it's not so much like if you don't say anything that you're just as bad. Not like, you know, but it's you're allowing it to carry on. If that makes sense.
And I guess that's the point of this project, right? Is actually, because you're right. How do you suddenly, after so long of not having conversations about race, you can't just pitch up at the dojo and go, hey, can we talk about our background? You know what I mean? So I mean, that's sort of the point of this project, isn't it? Is that we talk, and either that encourages other conversations, or people can kind of take some sanctuary. That's a bit poncy, but you know what I mean? Take some relief in what we've discussed, maybe. But I agree, sure. Talking is vital.
Yeah, because a lot of people, I feel that a lot of people wouldn't feel comfortable approaching somebody about a sensitive topic, or wouldn't feel comfortable in challenge, not so much challenging somebody, but asking them why they think that, you know. And I just, want people to know that it's okay, you know. And if it's me, hey, ask me, challenge me. Do you know what I mean? More the better.
When I was maybe 21, 19, you know, I was going through my tennis coaching exams, you know, my background before. So we did a whole module on working with disabled players, right? And as a young man, again, you don't know what you don't know. First level of learning, isn't it? Unconscious, was it unconscious something? You don't know what you don't know, right? And so it's the first time I'd been around kind of disability. So I was working with people in wheelchairs. And as a young man, I made the awful mistake of crouching down to a guy in a wheelchair, right? You know, in that sort of, can you see that? So I was crouched.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to be patronizing, but I didn't know what to do. And he was amazing. He took me to one side, and he didn't embarrass me. He He just said, you don't need to crouch. I can look up. It's okay. And at first I was embarrassed, because I didn't want to be hurtful. It makes me a bit teary thinking about it, actually. I don't know why, but I was incredibly embarrassed. But I learned immediately. But it need someone not to be offended and go, don't patronize me. Go on, you know, someone just to take you aside and go, listen, it's okay. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm not 4. Because I mean, he was a grown man. He was one of our Brit tennis players. And then you just don't make that mistake again. I think it's inexcusable if, when you learn, you make the mistake 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now we're in a problem, right? Now we're in
exactly.
the fight zone, because now you're ignoring. I'll give you a couple of goes to punch me in the face too hard. Told you once, maybe second time you forgot. Third time, I'm coming for you. You know, that sort of stuff. But I think communication, but also having someone with the grace who will let you make that mistake. No, not let you, allow you the mistake with the view of education, don't you reckon?
Definitely. And I think that's a lot of, and if more people could do that, that will help the conflict out there. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of it is brinkmanship. You said this, well then I'm gonna come back like that, and then this, that. You know what I mean? It just escalates out of control. You know, and it's like a wave.
Yes.
Throughout communities and stuff. So I think that's the next step. But it takes people like us, things like this, to get that word out there, you know, and to practice. If people can see people challenging people or asking people why, or get, you know, it will be a trickle on effect.
That's a great word, and coming from an educator, it takes practice. We wouldn't expect, and it's a skill. Communication is a skill, but and you're absolutely right, because you wouldn't expect to do any other skill, a dance or tennis or anything, without practice. And you're absolutely right. Communication is an absolute skill that, in fact, we can all benefit from. We're talking black and white right now, but this is equally gay, straight, overweight, not overweight. I mean, it's the same thing, right? You take a problem, you say, listen, can we talk about this? I'm not comfortable with what's gone on. And then open communication and the grace to allow the open communication. Yeah, that's practice. That's another. Nath, you're on fire, man. Practice. I've gone. All right,
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. So as we bring this to an end, because we've been chatting like 45 minutes, right? And I want this to be something people see and feel comfortable to go all the way through. In any closing business opinions, any thoughts to close on?
No, I think we've pretty much covered everything. Probably for me would just be to look back in on what we've discussed in a week, 2 weeks, because this case is unfolding as and when, and you know. So I'm whatever I've said today is not definitive to how I think and feel, you know. Yeah. So I'm always going to be updating my own knowledge and my own practice. You know what I mean?
That's a great point, actually, Nath. Is that, yeah, that's right. What you know, I'm getting killed out here.
I'm taking that one too.
But that's absolutely right. What you think or know today won't be the same. That is absolutely insightful, that it can evolve and change, which again points to that communication. You can literally turn around and go, yeah, I now know a page more of my book that I didn't know last time we did this interview. That's a superb point, which I guess then backs up the fact that one conversation isn't enough, is it? Actually, it's that evolving, working from white belt to black belt, isn't it? Belt in between. It's that evolving conversation. That's a great point.
For sure.
Oh, buddy, I can't beat that. You done me. I haven't got that much wisdom.
That's all good, man. That's all good.
Listen, I thank you so much. I hope this is useful for everybody. I'm very grateful for you for taking the time to do this. I know you're a very, very busy man, and I just hope that a conversation that we've had, people can find a little bit of safety in that, use us as a stepping stone before they start their own conversations. Yeah.
Cool.